Hello and welcome to Knowing Me, Knowing UKSG, a podcast exploring journeys in scholarly communications. In each episode, we hear from someone inspiring from the knowledge community and ask them to tell us about their career journey and what has motivated them along the way.
Hi everyone, and welcome to this episode of the UKSG podcast, Knowing Me, Knowing You. So today I'm joined by Caroline Edwards. So Caroline is co-founder and executive director of the Open Library of Humanities, which is an award-winning publisher of humanities scholarship, and it's based at Birkbeck at the University of London. So Caroline, thank you very much for joining us today.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So we've got a few questions about sort of your current role and your career journey. So we'll kick off with this one, talking about what you do now. So what does your current role involve, and what do you enjoy most?
Okay, cool. So I am an academic based at Birkbeck, as you mentioned. So I still do some academic work for part of my time. So it usually works out a 1 day a week. I'm still writing books and supervising PhD students and that kind of thing. But my main job these days is running the Open Library of Humanities. So for 4 days a week, I'm the executive director over there. And I was thinking about this question coming in, actually. I think the thing that excites me most about it is the variety. I never quite know day to day what I'm going to be doing. I mean, obviously, I have my calendar and it's full of meetings with different people, but it ranges from the highest level of, I don't know, financial forecasting, business planning, future proofing our particular model and coming up with new ideas for things we might do in a year or two's time, right the way down to sort of granular detail of actually going in and out of production, publishing some articles myself or alongside my team on some of the 33 journals that we run. And I think because as a co-founder of OLH, my colleague Martin Eve and I built it from scratch. So I think it's one of those things where, when you open up the bonnet of an organization, like I have done every single role at OLH, with the exception of being a software engineer. We've built everything from scratch. So I still really like to kind of hop in and out of various levels of the organization. I attend meetings with my team. So we've got an editorial team. We've got a tech team of software engineers who are developing our digital platform. We've got a marketing team who are organizing outreach with our library supporters worldwide, who are the people who fund and invest in the Open Library of Humanities. So yeah, it's a really diverse role, which is, I think, what makes it so exciting, to be honest.
So how many people are actually in the team? You say, you've got a marketing team. How many people is that? Is it very small, or are there plans to expand, or is it one person doing
Yes.
everything?
I mean, yeah, the marketing team is probably the smallest. There's three of us in that team, myself included. So as an organization, OLH currently has 10 members of full-time permanent staff, and we're all employees at the University of London. We also have a part-time Chase intern. So Chase is a Southeast regional PhD funded consortium. And so for the last 3 years, we've had interns being paid to come and work alongside us as well. But yeah, we do have plans for expansion. So we're doing really well, and we're in a kind of phase of growing the team year on year. So we will have another editorial member of staff joining us later on this year. And I'm hopeful we'll have another couple of posts that we can advertise in 2026 as well.
Oh, that's really interesting. So what sort of thinking more broadly about sort of the scholarly communications landscape, what excites you most about the work you do, in this space?
Would it be sad to say like it's what gets me out of bed in the morning? I mean, I set up the Open Library of Humanities with Martin because we were really angry. It really does come from kind of a place of passion and outrage, sort of righteous fury at the problems in the way in which scholarly communications has sort of found itself in this position of having larger commercial entities that tend to dominate most of how journals are published. And as academics ourselves, we just felt very strongly that anybody who isn't at a really large, well-funded, research-intensive university, or who doesn't have access to research funding, or who might be precariously employed or a scholar of the global south, all of these people are excluded from publishing in perhaps the top journal titles in their chosen field, which they have to do, even if you don't politically agree with those kinds of legacies of prestige and hierarchies of privilege. If you're on the job market as a young recently graduated PhD student and you're trying to get your first lecturing role, you have to publish in certain titles. That's how it works. So yeah, I mean, that it was kind of anger, I guess, that sort of started everything off. So I'm very passionate about what I do, and because I still am a practicing academic, as it were, I sort of wear two hats. So I'm here as a scholar, and it means an enormous amount to me that I can advocate on behalf of other scholars in the humanities and on behalf of different disciplinary and research communities. We're here to build something. We're here to effect change, and that feels amazing, to be honest. That's why it feels like such a privilege in my day job to get to do something that I love so much.
I guess you sort of support this. You come from a place of privilege as an established academic, and you can use your position to help those early career researchers with their publishing journey.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I think it boils down to a choice, really. I mean, I'm mid-career now, right? So I when did I become an academic? In 2010 was my first job. So I'm nearly 15 years in. And I think you get to a point in your career where you can sort of carry on doing the work that you do. If you're lucky enough, you get a certain amount of distinction or recognition for your work. You get invited to do keynotes and publish books and, I don't know, edit guest series and things like that. And you speak to quite a small community normally, of people who are really interested in your work. And I do still love doing that, but there's a part of me that I don't know, that's sort of not enough, because it is a bubble of prestige. Particularly since things have got dramatically worse in higher education since I became a lecturer. So the working conditions now are so much worse. The employment opportunities are so much worse. We're in the middle of a ongoing financial crisis in the UK sector, for example. So most of my PhD students won't end up working as academics, even if they wanted to. That's just a really kind of brutal reality. So I think I got to a point in my career and I just thought it's not enough to just carry on writing books about what I think about, novels or artworks or film. That's all lovely, but actually I want to do something about this, because I just think it's not right. And I don't know, I'm just one of those people who can't help but jump in. If you think something needs changing, I'm one of the people who will jump in and be like, right, we need to change it. And that's how I found myself in this role, and in a kind of alternative career, which I honestly never imagined. It always takes me by surprise that I'm in this role now.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Yeah, I mean, career can sort of change, when you least expect it, can't it? I think one of the points about these podcasts is that we're trying to sort of, show people the different career journeys you can have, with the zigzag lines. You can end up doing things that you didn't think you would be doing, or the different parts of the different types of roles within this space. I mean, it sounds like, my next question was going to be, what's the work achievement you're most proud of? But to me, what you just described there sounds like something to be like incredibly proud of, and how, the things you're doing in this area. But so I'll skip that question then, and I'll go on to
Don't skip that question, because there is
okay.
Sorry.
Goodness. So what's
think
the work achievement that you're most proud of?
Not I'm sorry, that sounds really big-headed, doesn't it? No, it's mainly because these days I do spend a lot of my time talking to journal editors. So one of the main things that OLH does and that we're known for doing is sort of taking on new journals who have left perhaps a commercial model at a large publisher that they're not happy with, and they want to go open access and they want to be more in control and sort of community governed. So day in, day out, I'm talking to these kinds of editorial teams, and increasingly they're saying, this model has given us hope. Things are so hard right now if you're a humanities scholar. if you're in America and you're trying to figure out what the new Trump presidency means for massive cuts to humanities funding, if you're in the UK, where the humanities subjects are disproportionately affected by department closures, program closures, restructures, mergers. I nearly said mergers. I think I'm incredibly proud of the fact that we have built something. It might be relatively small in the grand scheme of things. It might just be a drop in the ocean on a global scale compared with corporate behemoths, but I'm still incredibly proud that we can do something positive for our subjects, because it can often feel extremely demotivating and like there's sort of not much left to fight for, and that is quite scary, I think. So yeah, I'm proud of that.
Yeah, no, definitely. So obviously, I know you were saying that, no one day is the same, really. You do so many different things within your role, but has anything sort of really unexpected or interesting come up in your work that you were just like, whoa, I was not expecting that at all?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, more recently, I'm working on a very large international project that brings together library directors, particularly in the US and the UK, and also publishers like OLH, other organizations that publish diamond open access materials in the journal space. And I find myself chairing meetings where I've brought all of these, very high-ranking individuals together with enormous expertise and experience, and I sort of sit there and think, well, to me, I'm a literature scholar. Like I'm a, in my day academic job, I'm writing about mushrooms and science fiction and kind of weird literary forms. Why am I here chairing this really important meeting about how we change business models or how we change investment patterns for funding, our scholarship? That definitely sort of is an uncanny moment, I think, for me. Yeah.
So would you say you've like ever, you've suffered from imposter syndrome when you were sitting in these, I've certainly felt it when I've sat in space and I've been looking around at everyone and thought, well, what am I doing here? Why am I here? Is that something you've ever suffered from in your career?
Oh my God. I mean, I think we all suffer from it every day. I think anyone who tells you otherwise would be lying. You learn very quickly. You get thrown into academic teaching when you're a graduate student with very little training. And in some ways, I'm not to disparage the universities that I've trained at, but it's quite hard to prepare you for teaching. You just have to be thrown into lecture theatres and you just have to see whether you sink or swim. And then you're in classrooms and you're sort of managing, very different types of behavior and learning patterns and diversity of students. And I look back now and I realize how valuable those early years of teaching, especially when you've got very heavy teaching loads and you're working long hours, actually were, because it gives you that feeling of being an imposter just never goes away, but you just sort of learn to live with it. You just get on with it. So yeah, if I have to go in and chair an important public meeting or a panel, or in my literary career, I've done author interviews with various different writers. I think the largest one I ever did was at the Excel Centre. So I was on the main stage as a headline event interviewing Margaret Atwood in front of about 3,000 people live, and also being live streamed and recorded around the world. You do find yourself in these kind of odd situations, but you've got years of lecturing and teaching under your belt, and I don't know, you just accommodate yourself to that awkwardness, I think. And I think coming back to open access and scholarly communications, the thing I'm really fascinated about when you meet people is there aren't very clear pathways into a career in open access publishing. So most people in this space of scholarly communications have come here slightly by accident. I'm an example of somebody who is a scholar publisher who's coming through scholarship and has then set up their own organization and then found themselves on international boards and committees and sort of gradually makes a name for themselves. But obviously you've got a huge number of people there from the library space. You've got people who work in publishing. You've got others who are kind of freelance consultants and people who are technology specialists. So there's all kinds of different people. And I think one thing that perhaps the sector could get better at is showing a younger generation of students what a great career this is, and trying to help, I guess, make clear the routes into it, because it definitely wasn't clear to me. I definitely came here by accident. This was a a side hustle that I did in my mid-20s. And now it's basically my main job.
I hope you do manage to switch off, because it does sound like it can be all encompassing. Especially when you're working on like a global scale, like you say, with heads of libraries, institutions, and organisations in America. So what do you do for your own well-being? Like how do you switch off? Do you switch off?
It's hard. I have learned to switch off. I think having a kid made a big difference, actually. My daughter's now 6, and weekends are sacrosanct. I'm married to an academic, so before we had our daughter, we definitely got into that really bad habit of one of you would say, "Oh, I've just got more marking to do." There is always more marking. There are always, workloads are impossible these days, so you sort of have to decide which bit of your job you're going to cut corners on, which is not a comfortable decision. So as soon as one of you says on Saturday, I'm going to do sparking, the other one is like, I'll just get my laptop out and we'll do it in a cafe, or we'll do it with nice music and maybe a fire in the background because it's cold, but you're still working. So yeah, it's definitely becoming a parent has helped. I'm glad you're not actually video recording this podcast, because this morning I went swimming, sea swimming out in Brighton. I live in Brighton, so at the sea lanes by the beach. So I look a bit of a state, but yeah, I think exercise is super important. And the nature of my job does mean that I have to accommodate global timeframes. So if I need to talk to colleagues in China or Europe or California, I have to cover multiple time zones. So I'm quite careful now about taking time off in lieu or shifting my day depending on what I'm doing. In the past, I mean, I've gone on the record before talking about having a nervous breakdown earlier in my career, which was horrendous at the time, but taught me some really valuable lessons about how to take care of yourself. And now that I'm a manager in charge of a team of 10 other people, mental health and physical well-being are really high on my list of priorities of trying to take care of everybody. And I sort of joke with my team, like, I don't want anyone to feel that I'm oversharing, but I do draw on my own experience and show that vulnerability to them, because I want people to see that those in positions of authority that they might look up to, have been through this. And I want them to understand the dangers of workaholism, because I don't know about publishing, but in academia, it's absolutely rampant. That level of workaholism and imposter syndrome and insecurity and competition, because people are always competing for scarcer and scarcer resources. So research funding applications are intensely competitive. Job application, nearly 300 people applied for my job, and that was over a decade ago. You've got hundreds of applicants, all of whom have PhDs, all of whom are qualified. So academia in some ways is a really toxic environment to be in, and I've learned that to my own detriment. So yeah, I definitely try and talk about well-being when I can.
UKSG is in Brighton this year, so maybe we'll all join you for a swim in the sea. We can have a pre or post conference,
Definitely
outdoor swimming session. I might just watch that one, I'll be honest with you. Oh, William, well, it's been so, thank you so much for joining today. It's been so, it's been so fascinating to hear about it and hear about your career journey and your current roles, and more, really important, about the whole sort of self-care and how to look after yourself and put those and not to become a workaholic, because I do think in this sort of current climate, it's so easy just to, when there's so much competition for roles, and that's a very toxic cultures, it's so easy to sort of get lost. So I think that's really important, in your role as a manager to show that, actively show who, your employees. So yeah, I really hope that everyone at home, enjoys listening, as much as I've enjoyed sort of speaking to Caroline. And obviously don't forget to catch up with other episodes of Knowing Me, Knowing You, from wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you.
Cheers. Bye.
UKSG exists to connect the sector and encourage the exchange of ideas. It brings together the information community of librarians, publishers, intermediaries, and technology vendors. If you know someone whose career journey would make for an interesting episode, please get in touch with UKSG via Twitter. Please like and share our podcast to help us support those in our community who are just starting their journey. And subscribe to the channel to keep up with future episodes.